Hey, good morning, everyone.
How we've done away with law. Yeah.
So we're
We got Jeremy, sorry.
Hey, there you are. I hear you guys.
Yeah.
Awesome. And good morning to everyone.
No, I don't see you, so we're all over YouTube.
Yeah, I can do my video in about 25 minutes.
Okay. Go full screen, it comes on. He's on here.
Good morning. You really didn't miss much. Jeremy, we're on our action items. He's muted.
Yeah.
All right, perfect.
Okay, awesome. Thank you for joining.
Sorry about that. We're watching YouTube. We're watching ourselves. I'd like to welcome Sheree and Sarah. Sheree is our boss. We all work together here. Redevelopment.
Got ready.
Boss. Sheree manages downtown projects, so she's always great to have with us. Sarah, I think we'll be going about once a year. We can have her back more often if she wants to come. She'll be speaking to the board president anyway. So, yeah. Sarah. Actually, sorry, Sheree. You're up. You go first.
Would you like to sit here?
Well, I'm thinking I'll just sit down here at the table, closer to you guys. I love it when you invite me. Thank you so much. Urban renewal, our teams, we really only have this 4 project managers who oversee 8 urban renewal areas, and I have such great talented staff. You guys have Tori as your staff liaison, but as a person who also is staff liaison to a board, I can't tell you how valuable you are to staff. It just makes everything so much better for us when we have rhythms and we get interaction and we get that feedback. So Tori has never said anything but high praises about this board, so thank you for that. I also want to check in with you to see if you have any specific things you want me to share today. Otherwise, I'll just get going.
I think in our pre-agenda meeting, when we met, we were just wanting like a high level of what is happening in projects.
Okay. I recently went to the planning commission. They had asked for some information just about urban renewal areas. And I thought I would kind of, because of all the conversations about the general fund and the sensitivity with that, just kind of start with what I shared with them as far as what urban renewal isn't. It isn't funds that can pay for police, or fire, or operations, or maintenance, or repairs. It's also not tax, even though it says tax increment, where if the URA was closed, property taxes for everybody there would go down. So I know probably that Tori has educated you over and over and over again, but it just seems like right now it's the right time to make sure that the boards remember, so that if you're asked in the public, Because I know for us, when we buy properties in Riverfront, it hits the press now. We don't have money for the police, but they're buying properties, not the same. Not the same. The money that we have is to address why and put infrastructure in to be catalytic. So recently, Tori worked with me on a project that I was asked to provide information on from the new owners of Salem Center. So they wanted to know how much money, is coming into downtown. What's the capital coming into downtown? What are you doing? And so it was really pretty interesting because right now for housing, we have proposed projects or projects underway that are valued at 108 million. So I didn't bring the leveraging with me, but it's very high leverage because the maximum you're going to be able to give us would be that 750 because anything over that triggers prevailing wage. So that's pretty significant. That's underway or proposed. The total combined for projects that we've completed over the last 5 years, that's 187 million. So even though we have challenges right now, the amount of private investment that is coming into downtown is significant. The goal of the Downtown Advisory Board is to always keep the grant funding as high as we can. Because that's what has been instrumental and catalytic for a developer to want to come in to downtown. So we have Riverwood that's just about done, and probably Citizens Apartment, which is where the diamond lot is at Schmeck and High, probably that will break ground in the spring. Pretty quick, you're going to see the former Green Thumb building right here, just a couple of doors down. That's going to be interesting because it's a historic building in the back that's on the alley is not. So that particular property owner is going to preserve and redevelop the historic building, take down the building behind and put 14 housing units total combined between putting some on the second floor.
Just clarification on the location of the Green Thumb, is that where the brick building is?
Green Thumb is, you have like Salem Summit, the art department, then you have like where Cal is. It's just like 3 buildings down from where we are right here.
Oh, okay.
It used to be Green Thumb Forest.
Holding that, okay.
Sorry, yeah, Green Thumb and Forest, so it will be. He's gonna call the building, that particular property also bought 440 State Street, where 440 is. And he's currently redeveloping the former red boxes. And let me tell you, those housing units up above that ground level are stunning. The windows, it's just beautiful when you go up there. And I understand some are leasing it for office, not necessarily housing, even though they are residential units. And I think I shared with you at one of the times I came that there was a residential unit upstairs in that building. It was the freakiest thing you ever seen in your life. You go up there and there's, because they had a renter in there the first time I went there, so they had like faux grass and then, kind of like a front yard and kids' trikes and stuff inside on the upper floor. And then they had a unit. So you walk in and there was a living room, a kitchen, a shower bathroom. And Charles, the owner now, researched it, and I guess it was a showroom, which is why it was there. It was some furniture or some showroom where you could go into this space within a space like a model, and they had it all set up. It's not there now. It's so not there now. But Winslow's boutique, which is up here on the corner of Court and Commercial, where they specialize in formal gowns, they're taking the ground floor space, which is a lot of space, but they're expanding and it will be beautiful. And it kind of has this catwalk thing, which is probably why they were interested in it. Where you can just see, you can see the women wanting to come down there for a photo op or something, trying out their dresses. So Cook's Stationery is under contract. I haven't put that owner where Great Harvest was, that was sold, and a contractor is looking at redeveloping that. So in downtown, with the exception of the former Anderson, which I understand may be under contract too, then we really only have Salem Summit. And it's not vacant, but where Havana Hair Salon and Wallace, I understand that building's for sale. So in downtown, we're pretty much built out. So the advisory board, you know, we're looking north now, because we know that there's development outside our boundary off of Front Street, the Cannery project. We know the Front Street is a challenge, so we have some analysis underway with the Gray Road and the Front Street alignment there. And then recently, Sarah went in front of the agency board to see if they were interested in us doing a new URA further north. Because every time you do URA, you have a boundary, and then they have to step right outside of the boundary. But there is always been interest in the waterfront, the north downtown water. So that may be something that we'll be looking at, but the downtown board, we're looking at just north holistically, because Riverfront moves north. It's just the focus has always been downtown because we have so much vacancy. So let's see. The other thing I just wanted to share, kind of piggybacking off of river renewal can't be used for maintenance and repairs. I know that you're doing streetscape. So we started streetscape. We typically do like A and B in 1 year. We'll do one side of the street, and then we'll come back and do the other side of the street because we don't want to disrupt the businesses on both sides of the street at the same time, and parking and everything else. But what we learned was we put in the landscaping, the plants, had money to do that as part of the streetscape, and then they were all gone. I mean, when I say,
The plants were gone.
no, we have how many units now in downtown? Everybody has 2 dogs. So the dogs, I mean, when I say they were gone, there's no vegetation there. So it's kind of like you kept putting it in where we were going, and then where do I have money to do this? Okay, just keep that in mind, because where's the money come from? I have this beautiful
So
landscaping,
the
where's
dogs,
the money come from?
so the dogs are eating it or just using it for their?
Yeah.
Oh, and it kills it.
Please,
Okay.
And you're not talking about trees, you're talking about ground cover.
yes,
Shrubs, flowers.
yes,
Yeah.
unfortunately with the trees. Use them for sticks. So we're having to deal with the arbors because people have broken the bridge
Gotcha.
or removed the infrastructure that holds them in place.
Stay, yeah.
That's fine.
Stakes, yeah, which-
So just keep in mind, because what we ended up doing was the first time we put it in, it looks good for a while, and so then you're going on to the second phase, and then all of a sudden, so it's like, oops, stop. And so then I felt bad because I had to go with my project manager and say, I cannot have you put in any more plantings because it's not working, so just spark it. So now I'm hired another consultant. I personally went and looked at plants, every pokey plant that you can find. Do not want to get close to it, something then, I mean, seriously, I am being serious. If it hurts you, it's gonna be there.
What's the other dogs can't use it?
Well, it's,
I mean,
you can't, and then there's areas where you just realize it's high traffic. So like Isaac's is a perfect example, beautiful landscaping there, but where they put their tables and stuff, it pushes people right into the tree row. So all the plants right by the sidewalk, all gone. So again, we had to bring somebody else in, go out, kind of look at tree row by tree row. Do we need to put pavers in it? How do we come back and now do this right? So again, because we stopped planting, we have the budget left to go back and now plant those plants, different plant. Right, different kinds of plants and hopefully, but just because you guys are starting your streetscape and overall, the value, because it's not just for the person like getting a building or getting a grant, it's for everybody. It increases the value of everybody's property. It increases your experience. Streetscape to me is just amazing because you put the infrastructure in, you drip system for your baskets, or you're putting in the electrical infrastructure to be able to have holiday lights. And of course, in downtown with 100+ year old infrastructure. At some point, it's gonna take us until 2035 to go block by block, and we have the faults and we have some challenges here in downtown, probably differently. But just that ongoing maintenance, think real hard about that because it's how you pay to lead it or keep it up. So whatever you put in there needs to be very low. Doesn't need anything but looks good.
Rocks. Decorative rocks.
Or-
Big rocks.
You can, they have to
That's what we
be
do at
big
Goodwill
rocks, they
sometimes.
have
We have
to be
issues
big
like
rocks,
that, yeah.
the little rocks,
Big rocks.
you know, the
Yeah,
little rocks.
not something you can't pick up and throw.
Thank you, that's it, can't pick it up. Yeah,
We do that all the time.
yeah, yeah. So I think the only other stuff that is new is you're gonna see our bird wrap out here, maybe you did when you came in. We chose that location so we could keep an eye on it to see if it was gonna be messy. And to see how it was, going to, endure the weather, and so we have, I think, 8 more that are coming. We didn't want to do them all at once, and I thought that was smart by, my team member, because they wanted to see the quality of it. They wanted to get a sense of what it was gonna look like, what the product was gonna be, and then they were gonna unveil it. So we have that, and then we have 2 vacant art pedestals. And I heard that that was something that, you guys discussed, kind of what information you'd like to pass on to SPAC to help inform their outreach and solicitation. Art is different for everybody who looks at it. We have that conversation. There's a piece of art downtown, I don't like it, he likes it, okay, that works. Yeah, and so, yeah, so we have money in our budget for that, and then we also put money in next year's budget to outreach to those property owners who have historic buildings that over time may have lost some architectural feature. Years ago, maybe 18 years ago, I worked with the Historic Landmarks Commission to come up with a budget where they did outreach to historic property owners. And it was a competitive process to submit their buildings and what had been missing, some architectural feature. Cornices had changed over time, lights had changed. The property that won was the Reed. If you stand by Bowling Vine and look west, you're going to be able to see this really pretty architectural feature on the top of it. That was what the grant money put back in place. And with so much new construction going on in downtown, balancing that historic preservation with the new construction. So hopefully if that's approved, we'll have another competition. Landmarks will do it, not necessarily staff, just like staff will jury and select the art for the art pedestals as part of the city's art collection.
What is
So those
SPAC?
are a couple of things.
Excuse me, I'm sorry, just back.
Salem Public Art Commission. If you wanted a mural, if you wanted art on your utility wraps, anything related to being in the city's art collection. The Salem Public Art Commission would be who you would outreach to. If you were in the public, you would have to take it through them too, but as a board, that's what's working. So I'm doing better this time, I'm not going all the time.
I think you're doing it. You guys have any questions? So they have a grant program too. Like she said, it's mentioned 300,000 to. What's that? Our project. That's similar to what we have for exception criteria for the agency to waive for a bigger grant project. But I mean, how long ago was where there weren't really many residents downtown? now as a result of the grant, the historic buildings, making them be accessible was challenging, expensive, so they have ground floor businesses, but nothing engaged above. So if you want to speak to how successful that has been in getting actually people living here.
Well,
Downtown.
in 2004, there was 100,000 square feet of vacant space in downtown. The majority of it was in like 5 buildings, the former Anderson Sporting Goods, where that was converted. There's 2 buildings behind that former turquoise, former Anderson look on the outside, and so there was 2 historic buildings behind that facade. The Salem Arts Building, it's where Montgomery Ward's was. Newberry's, Metropolitan, those are like 42,000 plus square foot buildings, they were big. And so when I was hired, a key piece of my job was to try to figure out a way to get those projects, the vacancy addressed through grant programs. But we also had a loan program because the 750 wasn't in place at that time. So I did a lot of grants. And so at that time, we might have had 8 residential units in downtown. So we've come a long way. Actually, South Block really helped us because there was no comps. So if you're in real estate, you have no comps, no appraisal, hard to do it. So them doing more than 100 units and going into their second phase, because they leased up so quickly, that finally gave us a comp that we could use in downtown. Otherwise, I was doing 10, 13 units in historic buildings, very expensive, very hard to do. They leased up immediately. We had waiting lists, so there was high demand, but it was very expensive to do it. But the grant program started out as weather protection. So it was just based on your lineal foot in front of your building, and if you want to put up an awning, then we have money for that. Then it kind of morphed into, if you have a historic building and you want money for the outside, we have money for the outside. Then it morphed into, well, what about the inside, outside, inside, small grants like 25,000, and over time just keeping engaged with those property owners. We changed it where our grant program is different because we have objectives. So if you wanted to apply for a grant through our program, it has to meet an objective. You have to have vacancy where you're recruiting a business into it. Or you have a business that's expanding, that would be an objective. Or historic preservation, upper floor renovations, has always been there because we're sitting on a lot of historic buildings that just use the upper floor for storage. And so again, in order to meet ours or housing, you have to meet an objective. So our exception criteria says you have to meet one of our original objectives plus 2 more of one of these, and you do have to do leveraging. So ours is just a little bit probably more complicated, and we've never had acquisition as something that's eligible with the grant program. It's always been a push for, we want the accomplishment at the end of the day. We put money into what you're going to build, but not in acquisition where it possibly is site. We sit there for a while, and there's a lot, and we don't do roofs because we expect property owners to do some stuff themselves, or exterior painting, because that's the other thing. I would give up all my money if everybody just waited and came in to get their building to be painted. So there's been, and signage, things that change if businesses change. So yeah, our grant program has changed significantly, and we don't do loans anymore, thank goodness. The other day I had to go and look for something, and I realized I've done more than 300 grants in the time that we've been there. And I don't know how many loans. Back in the day, I have a banking background, so wherever you go, they just say, oh, you can do loans. I started out in federal programs. Oh, you can do loans. Oh, I don't do loans. And yeah, so we did loans, but we don't do loan programs anymore. But the grant program has been catalytic and very successful, but it has changed based on the changes that property owners need in order to be able to get the capital they need and move forward the project.
Just clarification, did you see the grant program would or would not pertain to signage? Is that so let's say someone has signage, existing signage, that's dilapidated and they want to, upgrade or, make it better with the grant program? Work for something like that?
Well, if somebody had something dilapidated, then that would be more maintenance repair to me, so no. But if somebody was, let's say whoever takes Great Harvest, they want to put a new sign that says mall is done with, we just don't do signage,
Gotcha.
just because, it's something, it's just like we don't do, bars, or we don't do any kind of cosmetic improvement, tenant-specific improvements, because then if that tenant leaves, the next tenant that comes in says, I don't want that bar. I mean, we really try to focus on those things that make the space better for any and everybody. So if you put those walls in, if you upgrade and do an ADA vacuum, if you put, HVAC, move it around and it's right, we really try to focus on that. Not, I want a chandelier because I'm gonna be I'm gonna do nails or something like that. If you wanted to upgrade to LED lighting, yes. So it's those permanent improvements that we try to do. I mean, there's a lot that we can do without those things. The flooring, the walls, the restrooms, the appropriate upgraded lighting. And then we have the capital grant, and then we have the grant that deals with crime prevention improvements to the outside of the building also. Sarah has that in North Gateway, and that's been used quite a bit to do traction closures, security cameras, security lighting on the outside of the building. We've done a lot of those, and we pay 100% of the cost, which is why that's highly sought after, up to 30,000. Because again, we've had quite a few issues in downtown, so it helps with security. Even more on the grant story.
No, but I think, I'm curious, I don't know if you guys drove over here, walked with
Yes.
the vacant lot across the street as you go over the bridge. Share on it really quickly.
Well, we have a meeting, we went through that, solicitation process to have, the development community respond to what we had outlined as kind of visioning criteria for that site. And we ended up choosing, England Chase. This odd last name, they're doing something very similar in Eugene right now. They're highly experienced. They just did a great presentation. So we're very excited to be working with them. We're working right now on the financing model to determine what we need to put in a disposition development agreement as far as what they're going to need in order for that to be successful. We know it will have to be phased. It's a big site. So they'll be looking at the east side of the alley first. That would be a mix of uses and some plaza space right out here in the corner of Commercial and Chemeketa, but it would be housing, maybe a grocery store. Everybody wants a grocery store. But yeah, their initial concepts are very exciting. So we would like to see something happen there. And then Tori's working with me because we also purchased the site block 45, down right on Pringle Creek. It's that kind of gravelly lot right there, just on the north side of the creek. South blocks on the south side, creek, that's where the path is supposed to go.
That's been vacant for a little bit and then.
Marquee is going to do something there.
Okay.
Yes, and so that one's interesting because a portion of the project's in South Waterfront, portion of it's in Riverfront. So, but again, that one's very different in that it's site ready. Across the street, I had demo, I have archaeological, I had all that to do. That one, all that's been done. So it's just a matter of we're going to start the same process to select somebody to move forward on that.
Going back to Ribbonwood, I had a question. Is it retail on the bottom?
No.
It's all residential. And then, I'm constantly asked if it's, LMI, low to moderate income.
They would have, because they have the multiple unit tax incentive program, I think that they have 15% of their units affordable at 80% or less.
Rivers having no retail on the bottom and then, residential on the top.
It's the
of
first
program.
one that does not have the retail on the bottom. Actually, I don't know why they chose to do that, but that is the design they chose. The Citizens Apartment, they're proposing to do good work on the ground floor, which will be different, and I think it'd be very successful. Because there's always been that need for, especially small business, to not rent, but to own their own space. Actually, where the Grand Theater is, the original purchaser of that, I thought it was brilliant because they condoed it. So where 10,000 Villages is and where Palomino is, where Kitchener Court used to be, they all own that. So for that property owner, they paid whatever the condo fee, set it up, and then they turned around and sold all those, and then we're able to take that money to help them do the renovations that they wanted to do. Actually, I think if I was ever going to do something, I would think a lot about doing that because it would give me that cash. And a lot of businesses want to own, they don't want to necessarily rent, and they don't want it as big as what you have to rent, they want it smaller. And when you round up, just think about that, that's gonna do something. So Citizens Apartment wanting to do that would work. I could see where that would probably be very successful, something different.
And then, I'm sorry, I feel like I'm just asking all those
And then-
questions. I'm curious, J.C. Penney, the old J.C. Penney building, right here. What is going on with that? See, I feel like I see something going on and then there's nothing and then it's
That
just.
particular property owner is in Portland and I've talked to his broker more than I want to say, and who's in Portland also, and no offense to Portland, but it is nice when the owners are closer here because like me, who has to walk by it many times a day, they don't, and so they don't understand the negative contribution it is making. And when I say negative, it is negative. So with the Forge, big time underway right now, you probably saw all of the fencing around it. I mean, they pretty much ripped that siding off. I'm so excited, and they really have some thinking outside the box, tenants and things that they want to do there. It's going to be very different. I hope it's very successful.
Oh, I thought they were just reciting it. The porch.
Well, it's empty on the inside. They have a delivery deadline for going through it. They're taking all the upstairs space.
Oh.
So it's inside and outside. Yeah, they have restaurants and they have a big, I've not ever been to Parallel 45, but I guess it has all these boutique salons and stuff in there. So they're doing something similar to that. They're thinking about a sports bar. They're thinking about like I'm gonna get it wrong. Pink martini type of thing, up where Chai Orchid used to be, kind of women's only, where if you wanted to have a bridal shower or a baby shower, kind of like book club meeting, but no book. Okay, whatever that means. Anyway,
What does that mean?
some things very different. So again, I'm excited to see what that is going, what that is going to look like. So the pending owner wants a tenant, which is why it's like a tenant. Oh my God.
What's the square feet of that
Oh,
space? It's like,
oh, that's gotta be close to 30,000 too. It's a huge building. It's got the downstairs, the main floor and the upstairs. And of course, for Salem, as soon as Penny's closed, they lost 22% of revenue because of the foot traffic that had broken Penny's over there. So Penny, so Salem Center is very interested in Penny's. The Forge is very interested in Penny's because there's a Sky Bridge over there too. So the Penny's owner is being contacted by them constantly. One tenant,
Part of your plan.
one tenant.
I'm done calling you guys.
So,
So like 3-level TJ Maxx.
well, TJ Maxx is out of the Willamette Center, and they won't. That, yeah, I just don't see that. So I anticipate that for Pennies to change, it'll be because of one of those two other property owners stepping in and wanting to do something. Whatever that is, I don't know. It's just funny you bring that up because I outreached to that property owner yesterday with pictures saying, this is what it's looking like. Now, I didn't get any response. I don't know the paper in the window. I don't know why it's so stained, like with moisture. I have no idea. But it is all or falling down or ripped or who knows what. But that's the thing. That's the criteria from the broker when he was up. He only wants a tenant. He won't manage multiple leases. And I just don't know who. Because I'm like, dude, pickleball. Pickleball associations looking for 3,000 locations. We need interior stuff. Do an inside batting cage, do inside pickleball courts, do a rock wall climbing thing. Do that golf thingy, you know, that everybody wants inside. Golf, I don't golf, you can tell, I don't golf. Something that would be interesting for the inside. Put a critter cabana. Could be saying that, or something that, I mean, I don't know, I love critter cabana, but you can go into those and they only have the puppies, but they have, you know, 75-year-old turtle walking around.
Yeah.
That would be awesome. There, I do. You go there and all of a sudden you're buying a turtle. Like, you know, something little that the parents aren't gonna really go crazy about. You know, anything for pets.
Yeah.
I mean, look at all the pets and they don't have anything, even a high-end, come and buy a leash or collar or something, I think it would do really well. In downtown, so please, sorry, I don't have. Okay,
How long has that been vacant for now?
that's a really good question. Okay, it's, well, prior to COVID. So, yeah, more than 5 years. And that's the other thing that, we're working on. There are some communities that have regulations regarding, space on the ground floor that has been vacant for a certain amount of time. So that is something that I'm exploring because there is a ground floor vacant space that has never had a tenant in the 23 years, I think. And the properties owned free and clear, and they probably are just, for whatever the reason, aren't incentivized to do it. I always focus more on the grant, kind of the carrot versus the hammer. But I think we need to see if there's something else we should be exploring. Also, that you have to register, if it's vacant, you have to put together a plan, maybe something like that, because we have some that could potentially be there. And that's not fair, I think, to all the 187 investment that's going in, which is why those two property owners are trying to work with that property.
Well, just the individuals that are gonna be moving into all of these multi-family structures. It's just a huge eyesore.
It is. Yes, every day.
Does anyone else have any questions on what's going on downtown Salem? That's a lot of exciting things happening.
Yeah, it's very people. That's why, you know, Troy hasn't really ever been associated with downtown, but we have so much going on and it gives him an opportunity to work on things that he may not get to in the other areas that he's working. So I'm very excited that he's like, I don't want to, no. He's like, yeah, I can't say that. Yeah.
The infill stuff, I've done a lot of things like West Salem, Creek, where it's just like, taken a lot, so not really, the other challenges like getting water and sewer to the location, and it's here, but we prove this, we can actually get the upper floor engaged, so, for a new development, landfills.
One more question in regards to, you had mentioned Great Harvest, and they are closing their location in west, and then the one downtown here, and they're consolidating to south, is that correct?
That I don't know
Oh,
their
okay.
business model, I just know that the building, where they were located here has been bought by construction, by a contractor. And it will be redeveloping. I guess the only other thing that may be of interest is Marion Parkade. We're looking at doing a significant upgrade to it with respect to,
This is where it makes.
the look, it's the one that has the sky bridge over the coals. If you go Liberty North, it's on the right hand
Gotcha.
side, it's the
So
biggest.
far, like it's between poles.
Yeah, it's the biggest parkade that we have, and unfortunately, because of that location, that's not as active. Parkade, it's not used as much, when we had the in-house situation start. That was the one that was impacted significantly by it, so the stairwells, due to the power washing and anyway, there's just lots of issues with that particular parkade as a consequence to what happened with the unhoused. So we're looking at opening up those stairwells so they're not restrooms anymore. So the potential new look and feel would be open stairwells, a completely updated, different look, the lighting and everything else, kind of more of a artistic contribution or something that you want to go to because it looks so cool. And a lot of that's because we're talking north. You know, if we want to start going north right now, we have a problem out here. We have the pit. We have Salem Center that isn't anywhere near full. We have Pennies and we have the Forge Building. So if you're on Court Street, south, you're doing good. If you're a property owner in business, that's where you want to be. If you're here going north, it's not the place to be. So that's why I'm really happy that we have the level of investment going in, but at the same time, those residents now, Citizens Apartment in Ribbonwood, where are they going to park? Because there's no on-site parking on these complexes. 12, 15, 150 residents, so they're going to be looking at Marion. And so I'm very excited about that contributing in a way it's never has before. And adding to the redevelopment kind of synergy that's going on there. So if you see something happening there, that's what's happening. And actually that is going to be fabulous. Yeah.
So I just wanna, is there anything changing it in regards to any infrastructure with traffic patterns or particularly anything that would affect like traffic footage? And
Well, I mean,
that's why I'm
only
just
the-
curious if there's anything.
No, we don't, all of the projects that were identified in the Central Salem Mobility Study, we've done those. And those were more converting one ways to two ways, extending the curb extensions. Pretty much every one of those projects, we picked off kind of year after year after year. It's the seismic upgrades to the bridge that occasionally touch me, only in that people still think I'm on point for all things parking. And where are they going to stage?
Yeah.
And where are they gonna mobilize and how are they gonna do that? Because they are big time organized and working out every little detail on that right now. But other than that, we don't have anything. Oh, you know, we funded our portion of the bike lane on Union Street. We did the signal for the bikes. And now there will be a bike lane down on water. You know, we've been part of that because it's in the Burlington area, but no improvements.
Just a comment, I'm just thinking to your question, all of the multifamily going in downtown and lack of grocery stores, they probably come across the bridge to West Salem. or there's the Safeway just right on the outskirts right there.
The grocery store thing has come up forever.
Yeah.
Because if you live downtown, and you have a kid, you don't really feel like you want to walk from Safeway. It's just,
It's dangerous.
it's just too far, and grocery outlet keeps indicating that they're the one for downtown, but you don't even know it's there. Coming this way, I mean, you have to know it's there, and again, it's not really walkable from downtown to go up to grocery outlet. I mean, Penny's out there, is like, put the grocery store in Penny. I know grocery outlet was looking, and I think they're on their evaluations where they are now, but I don't think that would be a good location. But again, if something happened in block 50, you could build it in, probably parking to support it, and of course, we have a parking lot right here. I mean, it doesn't get much. Okay, well, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I don't know.
We can many hours it's making.
Have to do that. That's itself. After the meeting.
Thank you, Sherry. For sure.
Finish through.
Next, we have our update on projects in the North Gateway urban renewal area and the focus urban renewal area.
Don't worry, you guys excited to Sherry, really see following her, because downtown's so exciting, you know? There's so many different things, not that North Gateway and the Gilchrist are not exciting, but when you're talking about what's happening downtown, it's just, no one knows downtown, you know, so. I always feel like I'm at a disadvantage when I have to follow her, but that's okay. So thank you for having me. I think, yeah, it's been about a year and a half, I
I think
think.
we have it on the schedule at least once a year, so.
Since I've been able to meet with you, it's been a long time since I've met with you in person, so I do appreciate that opportunity. So yeah, Tori asked me to give some updates on the Gilchrist and North Gateway, so I'll kind of give some highlights. The Gilchrist, for those that maybe are aware or not aware of its location. So the McGilchrist URA is basically about the same size as West Salem, give or take about 50 acres. So they're kind of similar within that perspective, except for the fact that McGilchrist is in a highly industrial area, so it's adjacent to the airport. If you're talking about kind of how it runs, it's sort of McGilchrist Street from like 12th to 25th is kind of the core area, and then it kind of branches out from there. That particular urban renewal area was created specifically for one project, which is a little bit more unique. Most of our urban renewal areas, there's a multitude of improvements, you know, we want to see, where with McGilchrist, it was identified that really McGilchrist Street needed substantial improvements. Because it is more of a industrial business area, the access to I-5, the access to the different transportation corridors, it needed to have a variety of sort of road upgrades in order to make it successful for people to continue to develop out in that area. But where's the funding come from? And so it was identified that let's create an urban renewal specific for that, with the idea that over time, we would be able to do the project. Now where it's a little bit different is from the very beginning, it was always known that the URA would never have enough money to do the project. So the idea was we could use the urban renewal funds to start the design, to pay for all the design, and then have the urban renewal funds available to use as match funds for grants. So the project being done has always been contingent on getting, whether it's state grants, federal grants, bond project, it's always been contingent on sort of that piece of it. So it's been done in a very phased approach. So even though the urban renewal area was created in 2003 or 2006, sorry, you know, it's been almost 20 years and we're just now starting construction. So they kind of did 30% design and then it kind of sat there and they saved more money. And then I started on the project when we were working on 60% design. So at that point we're going out and we're doing all the outreach and we're meeting with everyone and we have this design, but we still don't have any construction money. But we were lucky enough to get a grant from the state for right-of-way. And because the project goes all the way from 12th to 25th, and we're looking at places where the road may need to be widened, where we might need to add a turn lane, we're realigning 22nd Street, because right now if you're in that area, you go here, and then you hit Gilchrist, you start to turn, and then you kind of go like this, which does not make it safe, doesn't make it accessible for anyone. There's flooding out in the area, there's no sidewalks. there's a lot of fun little problems that have to be dealt with in a very large kind of scope. So the right of way piece, we always knew was gonna take years, because every single piece of right of way, it's a negotiation with an individual property owner. So that process actually started pre-COVID. We are almost wrapped up with it for the entire corridor of the project. What we've done now is we've divided the project into 3 phases. So government and construction money, look at that big number, how do we even start going about it? And so what we decided to do is start applying for grants based on phases, so that hopefully we could get money, start on a phase, keep working on getting money, start on the next phase, rather than trying to do this whole behemoth of a project at one time, because who's gonna give us, $30-40 million? It's just not out there. Through some local state grants and through some urban renewal dollars, we were able to put together the funds to do phase 1. So that's what's underway right now. So right now you actually can't get through on McGillcrest. So we're kind of starting with what will be somewhat the most impactful first, which really is that 22nd realignment. So from 19th to Ford is pretty much what we're focused on right now. Construction started in October. We think it's gonna wrap up late this year, early next year. The intersection actually right now is closed. So it'll reopen in July, and then after that, there'll be kind of intermittent closures, because there will be culvert work and things like that to start working on the stormwater issues that we have out there, where if you've gone out when we've had a lot of rain, it's very flooded, which is always a fun little thing. So we kind of said, okay, we've got that piece figured out, but we still have phase 2, phase 3. And so all throughout this time period, we've also been trying to apply for federal grants. So we started, I want to say when we first started applying for it, it was called Tiger. And then I think it changed to Build, and now it's Raise. But ultimately, it's the same grant program, which is you're doing transportation kind of related projects that are going to benefit an area. And it's a federal grant, and you can get a buku amount of dollars, but it's highly competitive. Any community can only submit 1 application. You have to have a cost benefit analysis done. The application itself has about, I want to say maybe 14 different components to it. So we started applying for this grant when we kind of were starting our right away, realizing we're gonna have to find another big source. Urban renewal isn't gonna have it, the state isn't gonna have it. What are other options? We applied for the grant 6 times, finally got it on our 6th try. So perseverance does help. Every time you can do a follow-up with the federal folks in DC to be like, how do we make it better? And every time we sort of just got this messaging, so we'll say, do this, and then we do that, and they'd be like, well, no, you need to do this. And we're like, well, the last person told us not to do that. And it just became, as different administrations came in, I think that's where it got really tricky, because we kind of started at the tail end of the Obama sort of, and then we went into the Trump presidency, and so that changed how it was all looked at. And so that made it a little bit trickier too, because you have different staff, you have different people working on it. And then over time, what we also learned is it's one of those applications where each component got sent to somebody else. So even if you had information in there, if you didn't repeat it, they didn't know it. At the very end, they finally told us to write a narrative, which we'd never been told to write a narrative, and then we finally got the grant. So we don't know if they were just tired of seeing our application.
Really efficient process.
It was definitely not the most efficient by any stretch. But we did get just under $13 million, which was huge. So at that point, the messaging, and if you saw it in the papers or anything, it's like, okay, we can do the project, we can do the project. We don't need bond dollars to do the project, which wasn't correct, because with inflation and with a lot of other costs, we need every penny to get that project done. But that was a huge push. Now, where the renewal came in is the match for that grant is 100% urban renewal. So it's a federalized project, which also makes it more expensive.
Sorry, can I ask a clarifying question? So the 13 million from DC essentially, after 6 times.
Yes.
The urban renewal matches 13.
So it's a percentage match, so we have to put down, I'd have to look, no, It's about around, I wanna say 1.8 to 2 million.
Percentage of the.
Exactly, yeah, is what we have to contribute as part of that. And those funds will actually be used for phase 2 and 3. So even though we received the grant a year and a half ago, we're still finalizing the IGA to even get the funds to start using the funds. So it's a very lengthy process. I know I hear other folks in the community and we talk about different infrastructure projects and people are saying, let's apply for the raise grant, let's apply for the raise grant. And what and Tori and I have had this conversation too, is it's a great option, but it's not easy and it is expensive. You have to hire consultants to do a cost benefit. And then once you get the money, now your project becomes federalized. And so there's a whole host of restrictions and requirements and reporting that you have to do now that just as a public project, we don't have to do. And so it just increased your costs. So, you know, unless it's something that's really big financially, it really may not make a lot of sense. But it's definitely one of those where we just had to like, okay, if we can get 2 million from here and we can get 3 million from here, and we've just been piecemealing it. But now we're at the point where we think financially we're solvent. We are working on the final design for phase 2 right now. We're actually hoping to go out for bid here later, fall, early winter. And that will be the telltale sign, you know, are we still on track for budget? And does it look good, or are we seeing things just kind of go all over the place? Phase 3 will be the section from 12th to 19th, and that will incorporate the railroad crossing. So that'll be our third and final phase. So once we get phase 2 up and going, then we'll start working on the design for that. So the idea is we would just roll one into the next to try and kind of get the whole project done. It's been a project that's received support throughout the whole time, although of course now that construction's underway, there's been some impact to the businesses. And so, you know, our public works folks are trying to continue to work with them on access and things like that, because it's always kind of tricky. So, you know, that's the only project we have for Hillcrest. And then every dollar we have is pretty much going to that. So it makes it a little bit different in that respect. So that's what's happening out there.
It's exciting though, because if you're out there, there's no construction. If you go to 22nd, you can't go to 22nd, it's all shut down, so it's, you know, we talked about like other for so many years. It's finally happening, so. It's
I wonder if the airport and the flight, did that have anything to do with it finally going through?
No, you know, we didn't have commercial air service when we finally got the grant. Of course, it's something that we'd always been talking about, and Tori and I actually have both been working with the airport for years on their economic development plans, on their land plans, you know, and so it's been kind of nice because we have been correlating those things together. You know, we did an industrial site readiness study for them kind of at the very beginning of COVID. You know, they have vacant land, but they don't know what can they develop, what impacts might there be, they have archaeological issues, you know, do we need to look at some things like, you know, is there any issues with endangered species? And so we've been doing a lot of work with them over the years, and so that information has always gotten relayed as part of the application. So I'm not sure, and they never tell you why you finally scored high enough. And at the end of the day too, it's always political. So you kind of have to go through 3 tiers. The first one is to the staff, just to say that you meet the expectations. So if you meet all the expectations, then you get moved into another one where they actually look at your cost benefit. And then they start scoring you on a matrix, but all of it comes down to your cost benefit. I will say we did not make modifications in the last round to be able to account for inflation. So it could be that our numbers were looking pretty good because it was a timing issue. With this particular grant, historically, they don't always give you a lot of time in terms of notice to proceed and when it's due. And especially in the last round that we did where we got the funds, we only had 4 weeks notice. And so you can't get a new cost benefit done 4 weeks, as much as we would have liked. And so it could be that our numbers were looking a little bit better in that regard, but then after that, it's solely political. It's up to the politicians to decide which ones they would like. And of course, we always make sure that we have our representatives' support. We always get support letters from them. We've gotten support letters from our state representatives for the project that we include in the packet. Business owners, I mean, we kind of carry the gamut of that. So it could be that the timing was just right and the other projects that submitted, weren't quite, usually it's kind of the sexy projects. That I've noticed have gotten the funds in Oregon, so you're doing a TOD kind of study, so you're gonna have mixed use and you're doing all this cool streetscape and you might be doing, some different multimodal transportation. Ours is needed and fully functional, but it doesn't have the pizzazz, it's kind of like talking about downtown and then talking about Mill Creek. Or talking about McGillcrest or any industrial area, it's very different and it serves a completely different purpose, so. It might be that we were competing against projects that were a little more similar to. Or staff just really liked us, I don't know, I wish I did, honestly.
And I just have a quick question. So the purpose of the
Yeah.
renewal area there is primarily to just create space that will be more attractive and more accessible, I guess. So businesses will be drawn to invest in there.
Exactly, it's a very industrial area, and we have, actually just ran the numbers the other day, I wanna say we have about. I think it's about 33% of the parcels in that urban renewal are underutilized right now, and we actually had a lot of development recently. But what everyone was telling us that had land out there is we're not gonna develop unless you improve this.
Yeah.
We can't bring in vehicles, we can't bring in deliveries, we can't do our trucking, we can't get the access that we need and we can't pay for it as property owners, I mean, that's not gonna happen. And so that was kind of the pivot, which is the but for, which is what urban renewal always loves to see, when it comes to statute. Is our property owners are telling us, we're not gonna develop unless you guys make these improvements. And so that's kind of how it came about. Now, I will say, since we were actively starting on the 60% design, but we were out meeting with property owners and making it very public that we're trying, we did start to see more investment. Some of it was more kind of temporary investment, let me put up some industrial flex space or something that down the line I'll do something else for. But within the last couple of years, there's been a lot more turnover of land, a lot more people interested in doing development out there, and so I do think it's working. Now, we do have a couple of property owners that are longtime property owners that still have vacant land, and so we'll be really curious to see what they decide to do now that the project really is up and going. The one thing that I was thinking of, when Sheree was talking about streetscape and all that kind of fun stuff, we ran into that because everybody wants it out there, even though it's an industrial area. Public Works was even asking me, what the trees, like what benches, and I was like, what's the maintain it? And we can't pay for that.
Yeah.
And what's really fascinating is, and hopefully it looks the way I think it's going to when it's done, is for the 22nd realignment, the way they're having to do it, I mean, we've had to buy all sorts of land kind of around there, so it's not like the road's just gonna suddenly move, and it allows some really big, amazing green space to be in that area. And when our project managers were talking to the property owners that are kind of adjacent to where those are gonna be, saying, listen, we can do something like what we were talking, rocks, something that doesn't do anything, or we can do greenery and we can have something for like your employees can actually come out and enjoy and have that green space to mix with all the, all the hard kind of surfaces. They're like, but we can't maintain that. Both the property owners actually signed agreements, so we put it in, they take care of it. And if at any point in time they don't, then we'll rip everything out and it would just go back to whatever it was and it would be at their cost. So it was a unique way for us to be able to do something to give some softness and some life to an area that just wouldn't typically have that, which we're kind of excited about. It's different. We're also doing a cycle track in that area, so we're not separating the typically you have your traffic lanes and then you have your bike lane and then you have your sidewalk. So what we're actually doing is we're widening our sidewalks. And there will be a cycle track marked on our sidewalks, but the way that they'll work is when you get to the lights, they'll actually have a go through where the cyclist can go through the intersection like a vehicle and then come back up. So you don't have the issues of some of the safety of being on the road with the trucks and things of that nature, but folks can keep moving through. It'll be the first one that they've done in Salem. They have some in Hillsborough and in Beaverton, especially in newer kind of development areas where you have a lot of different kind of traffic modes coming through. So that's something new that we're doing.
Where's the location of the new cycle track?
So it'll be on that 12th through 25th. So it'll be the whole sort of section on McGillcrest.
Is there a lot of bike traffic out there?
We don't have a ton right now, so it is part of kind of that multimodal allowing for more options, but we do have a lot of folks that have employees. And when we talk to them, you know, we hear we would like to have more options. You know, one of the weird things is the Social Security building, for instance, is out there, but the bus doesn't actually stop right in front of it. The bus stops on the other side of the street, and so you have to walk and come across an intersection and come around and in. And it doesn't make a lot of sense because you would think people that maybe are going to, you know, the Social Security building and there's a veterans building out there might want closer access. And so that's one of those things where by making these improvements, we'll be able to move the bus stop and have it be accessible. So there's little things like that that we're gonna be able to do as well. That area actually kind of designated itself a while ago as a brewery district. And so that was part of the idea too, as well, if you live close by, you can bike and then you might be able to, you know, go to different breweries, just to try and kind of elicit a different type of access to the area. So we'll see, how it all plays out, but some of the things that we put in, you know, a lot of that is also just tied to some of the funding that we get. So if you get this funding, you need to be doing these other things, or it's just tied to sort of state or city kind of requirements of more complete streets. So making sure that we're looking at access for everybody in different ways. So that's some of the reason why we may not have it now, but let's go ahead and put it in, and if then it's accessible for other people to get places. And the more that we have pocket developments around the city, the more that might become more appealing. So it's a little different than that one. North Gateway is definitely a little different than that. It has a little bit of mix of everything, I would say. We're a little industrial, we're a little commercial, we're a little services, we're kind of, you know, a little bit of everything.
Pretty much what Salem.
We do have some residential, yeah, we, most of our residential, we've been focused on affordable housing, is what we've been focusing our funds on. More so than anything, but it's a little mix of everything. It is our largest urban renewal in the city. And this one is a little bit more unique because back in, I almost want to say pre-COVID now and post-COVID, it's like BC and AD. I mean, it's like 4 years that I just don't even know. I have no concept of time there. Pre-COVID, but I want to say probably around 2018, 2019. One of the things that we did with North Gateway that we haven't done with any of our urban renewal areas is, so we had reached the point of only having about 5 to 6 million left that we could collect in tax increment, and then we were done. Didn't do any more projects, we were gonna hit that point. And so we had a conversation and the board was like, listen, we've got a lot of projects we still want to do. We were really starting to see things pick up on the private sector. It took a long time for North Gateway to really get those private dollars coming in, but you know, we couldn't keep grant funds for longer than 24 hours. We put $1 million in the pot, it'd be gone by the end of the day. I mean, we were just seeing so much activity, which was fantastic. And it was like, we don't want to lose sort of that momentum, knowing there's still a lot of work we'd like to do. And so we went through a process to substantially amend that urban renewal. It took about a year to increase the amount of money that we could collect. You can only do that once. Within any urban renewal area, that's all regulated by the state. And so by doing that, we were able to kind of bring in about another $23 million. And so what we do as part of that, which is a little bit different, is you kind of have to master plan how you're going to spend those dollars. So when you create an urban renewal area, you have, you know, tons of ideas of projects, you know, blighted property, and this is how much we think it would cost to do all these different things. But you're really not held to it because you're talking decades in order to get things done. But when you go through an amendment process, you kind of have to hold yourself accountable because you're telling the taxing districts and everyone, listen, we'd like to keep collecting for another handful of years, but here's where we're going to focus our time and effort on either these specific projects or these types of programs. And so we went through that, which has made it a little bit more interesting for our board, because instead of having conversations like, okay, what should we tackle next? Or we have these extra funds, it's, okay, here's the list that we all created, and here's the timing of when we were gonna fund these things. Are we still good with this? Or as opportunities come up that kind of align within that, it's more of a conversation of, yes, we can give money to this, but what are you willing to take off the list? So it's been kind of a different dynamic, and in some ways, they don't really need to meet as much as we used to, because so many decisions are kind of made, and we're just trying to work through some of the projects. So that's been kind of it makes it a little bit different, than some of the other urban renewal areas. One of the projects that I think Tori thought you all would be the most interested in is something that we're sort of in the middle of right now. Also pre-COVID, we purchased a property, it's 2640 Portland Road. It was a former Zamora auto site, and then before that it was a DMV. It's right across from Center 50 Plus, where there's the strangest configuration of roadways in the city. I mean, it's so messy. It's like you go out here, and then you have to go around to get to Silverton, and you got the railroad tracks. And so in our city's master planning, Pine Street, which is kind of the road that gets you there, and then you kind of have to do the weird go around, actually would go through that property and to Silverton, so you kind of clean all that up. So when the property became available, the agency went ahead and purchased it with the idea that if we were to ever do that project, we would need to have the road. At the same time, the property owner said, hey, you've got this in your plans, like it's affecting my property value. Who wants to buy a property if the city might come in and say, we want to put a road through the middle of it? So that was kind of right before COVID, and I say that because it kind of added to why we haven't done anything yet. We hadn't started coming up with plans, for development, for the road, what is that gonna look like? COVID hits, homelessness becomes, the top priority of everyone, and we have this site. And so what ended up happening is, for the first 18 months, that site was actually used as a homeless shelter. It has a lot of DEQ restrictions on it, specifically that we can't have ground level residential. So due to the toxins that were found and the unpredictability of them potentially being released, we can build on the site, we just can't have residential on the first floor. We can have on the second floor, the third floor, we can have retail, we can have anything else on the ground floor, just no residential. So with that being said, DEQ said, well, 18 months is fine, like they can be there for 18 months. So we use the site for that for 18 months. And then after that, what it's been is we've transitioned it. So it actually serves as administrative space for our providers, so they can store their buses there, their vans there, they can wash equipment, they can use the office spaces as they need to, they can have meetings in there. So we've continued to be able to use the space for a community purpose. But we're kind of to that point, really last summer, we need to start planning the future of this site. The idea was either to have the road go through or to have it contribute. And after some fun conversations with the railroad, because we would have to modify the crossing, we decided it just really wasn't financially feasible to do the roadway, to do the road, yes. The railroad controls everything. Railroads were there first, so we don't trump the railroad always, and we've run into that a few times in North Gateway. There's the fun undercrossing, and people want us to change it and do all these things. We have no control over it, because it's not ours, and the railroad supersedes kind of everything else. So it's a little tricky. So when you ask, hey, we'd love to change a crossing, they can tell you, sure, you can do that, but then we want you to do this and change these three things at the same time. And now you're, at $200 million and you're affecting all these other entities, and it just doesn't balance out. And so after those conversations, we kind of said, listen, it doesn't make sense in the whole. So we're gonna start looking at how do we redevelop this property. It's a strange property in terms of its location, makes it a little bit trickier. And so we had internal conversations and our board had conversations. And so what we've been going through kind of since late winter is we're updating our market analysis first, because dynamics have shifted, what people are looking for has shifted. That component is just about done, but what we're also doing is a full development analysis, because what we want to know is not only what is it that's lacking or needed within that community area, but what development is feasible. If you're looking solely at zoning and, the land and transportation and access, what's feasible? What's also financially feasible? What's it gonna cost? What's it gonna bring in? Are certain things gonna come out the window? Are there projects where it's feasible, but there's a financial gap, and what does that look like? And then layering all those things together. Because the idea would be then, we would do hopefully something similar to like what we did with block 50, which is we could then put together goals and objectives for the site that are actually goals and objectives that could be met, instead of us saying, well, we'd love to see X, Y, and Z there, and every developer just laughs at you and says, there's no way you can make that work. So what we're trying to do is be really meaningful in sort of what we're looking at, so that there's, when we start talking to folks and whatnot, there's a realistic approach to what makes sense for that particular site. So we are, I would say we're hoping to wrap that up here within the next couple of months. And then be able to kind of, share that with the board and, hopefully, internally and make some decisions to be like, okay, start kind of marketing that and whatnot. The folks that are there, we've continued to keep them on. They're aware of sort of what our plans are. And so at this point, we kind of been doing 6-month extensions for their lease so that, they're not caught off guard or anything like that. But, so that's been kind of a unique way of doing it. So we're kind of taking a piece of kind of what's been working downtown and kind of trying to tweak it in a different way that makes more sense for kind of that particular area of town. So we're looking at everything from, should we look at an industrial? Should we be looking at like medical office? Should we be looking at different types of housing? Whether we're looking at market rate, are we looking at, using different types of lift funds and what those could look like? So it's been kind of an interesting process, mixed use. And we've been working with our friends at Eco Northwest to do that kind of work. So that's been one of the big things that we've been working on up in North Gateway. Any questions about that?
Just more so comment, I think anything will be an upgrade, obviously, right, to what's there, because it is such a, I mean, you
Exactly.
see it from all wherever you're
It's-
coming from, it's just like, bam, yeah.
Yeah, it's unique in a lot of ways.
Site visibly, but accessible is the issue there.
Yeah, accessibility, and that is one of the things we're also having them do, is they're doing, we're having 3D renderings done with everything so that people can really see, like, you could say you want this, but then when you see it on the site and when you see it, like, is that really the look that you want? And that's what I'm really enjoying about the process, is we're getting the data, but we're also getting the numbers, we're getting the practicality, and then you're getting a visual. So I think it'll be really nice not only for our board to see, but showing others, it's like you get all those different pieces to make a decision as opposed to kind of what could be. Which is kind of an interesting approach. And it's something that our board hasn't gone through before. We haven't done a lot of property acquisition and development where we've gone through this process. So it's something new for them, and hopefully it'll turn out to be something good for everybody, but we'll know sooner than later, hopefully, but
That's awesome.
I don't control those things. I just give the information,
Does anyone have any questions? Jeremy, you still there? Awesome.
Okay.
All right. Oh boys, review draft design goals, criteria for use in
Sir.
public area.
Thank you.
No problem.
Oh, you don't wanna hang out for that?
I mean, I could, but
Thank you.
I'd probably say something that'll just get me into trouble or like give Tori more work, so I'll just run away. Thank you, everyone.
So really quickly from our last meeting, this is, with the Second Street Road project that we're doing, we already have the foundation laid for our pedestal. And so last meeting, we talked about, project values and design goals. So I just wanted to make sure that I captured that. So what you'll see, if everything looks okay, is we'll bring an action item to, the next meeting. So, if you see something now, great. If not, send me an email or a phone call. It's really what we'll try to do is have this prepared for the action item next month.
Awesome.
If there's anything you want to add or line, there's a reference or idea that you're not seeing. So as far as next steps, there'll be an action item, and then we'll take these project values and design goals to the Salem Public Art Commission. They'll frame a proposal to engage stars to build it, basically the sculpture piece that was located in that direction.
Yeah, very cool. That's exciting.
Yeah.
It's definitely some Second Street there, but you can be in seconds. Really.
Yeah.
Really long.
Yeah, it's
It's a good project.
yeah, no, it's interesting right now because I wasn't sure how they were gonna take the asphalt off, like it's all off.
Yeah.
I thought my phone would ring off the hook, because we've been talking to the residents on that section. You know, it's one thing when you're doing a new roadway between two buildings, yeah, they're like, yes, please build it.
Yeah.
Now it's like, I expected people to say like, why? Line street, but we'll give them more room. The roadway will be, same roadway, but they'll have detached sidewalks, parking will remain. So they're getting a lot of benefit. The existing sidewalk too, I think, half of this little small, right on the curb. So you're walking down the street, on the street, basically, narrow sidewalk. Was in a good condition. So yeah, I expected with all the driveways altered. I'd be getting a lot of calls, but the calls have been, one particular instance, they had, their main driveway, and they wanted to be able to get another vehicle on the side, so they wanted to widen their driveway. So it's those kind of little things like, hey, before you form out here, we get a little bit wider so we can pull off to the side of our driveway.
In instances like that, does the homeowner chip into the cost?
So it's, no, I mean, because we just have it.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and we already
Good
have
to know,
to,
guys.
we already have to form it to make the driveway
That's very
anyway,
cool,
so
yeah.
it was perfect timing, so. Luckily, our information's out there, so reached out to me, reached out to the engineer, like, hey, I noticed that you're getting ready to form, what about making it a little wider to accommodate my side drive?
Yeah.
We're able to talk to
Love
everybody.
that. That's awesome. Tell them to give you a Google review. Awesomeness. Any questions, or can we move forward swiftly? All right, perfect. Latest from West Salem organizations. Our next general meeting is the 23rd of May. Salem, Craig with Salem Dream Center is going to be coming in and showing a video. A couple of years back, he was a guest speaker, and I think it's just an updated, which is always super exciting to see what's going on their end, and it's just really heartfelt what they do. It's pretty cool. That is all I have. I was unable to attend our general meeting that we had the end of April, which was last month. It's crazy, right? I believe it's May. I was out, but we had Jeremy, can you hear me? Were you able to attend? I think it was Commissioner Moorhorst and his opposing candidate. Were you guys there?
No, huh? I think Heidi might have been there, but it's
Oh,
really hard
okay.
for me to get over there on Thursdays
Sure.
these days.
Yeah. I was just curious because I was unable to attend too. I was up in Portland. So I heard it went really well.
Nice.
So, yeah, that's what's going on with WSBA. Just, we've got slots, guest speakers for all of the rest of 2024. So, stuff. It's okay. And I'm like, anyone else have anything to say? Okay, moving forward. Next meeting topics.
So next meeting, we'll have the action item for the art piece, and then ODOT will be updated on upcoming projects of the time, they're touching West Salem, so Salem.
Would they be also able to, at that point, address maybe the signage?
Yeah, I mean, you can bring it up, I'm not sure if, and so it's interesting, because all of them work on different things. And we'll have an area manager, so she's a little bit bigger picture, but yeah, I think come prepared to bring any questions out of walls or signage or whatever you want to bring in.
Oh, we'll be talking about YouTubers out there. We'll be talking about the signage in West.
Pretty visual rendering of what it looks like.
That's right, John. Okay, is anything for the good of the group? Okay, thank you guys all for coming. Thank you, Tori. Thank you. Thank you, Margarita.
All right, thanks, guys. Have a good one.